magazine readers, for intellectual snobs, for bubblegum chewing valley girls, or for sports fans, frat boy juice monkeys. Newspaper readers, for Ethel, Myrtle, Howard, Leonard, or for nose-picking middle-income fathers with their 2.5 kids running around the suburban bungalow. The good thing about multimedia is that you don't have to be either of these groups. Let's hear what Kolby and Heather have to say.
So there are many examples of traditional newspapers or organizations that are trying to reinvent themselves, I guess is a good way to put it. And I think our favorite example is the Globe and Mail, because they encompass so many different parts. So the first thing is what everybody knows that's happened kind of recently is the new glossy format, which you can see here. It's nice. It feels good on your fingers. And that is their way, because they think, their opinion is, well, we can still create a premier print product and we can publish it differently and we'll be able to be successful that way. They do, of course, have a website as well, which is organized quite nicely. But down on the right side, if you zoom in, you'll be able to see, they have video, they have highlights, they have hot topics on WikiLeaks, they have Facebook activities, and they have Twitter somewhere down here as well. You can click here for your RSS.
Mobile edition.
For your mobile edition, your e-edition. It's really a way, what we were talking about before, of making yourself as available as possible to anybody to get at you all the time. There, you have everything that you would normally have. So if you're out and about and you want your news like this, you can just have it automatically right to your phone. And if not, you can sign up for the RSS, which are on virtually every single newspaper page now, even tiny. I don't think that they're failing. I think that, and to people that I know that I've talked to and that most of us have talked to, if a paper is having challenges with how to put their content online or how to build a good online product, it's that they're still learning. And I think that that's what they'll admit first and foremost, is that especially with a lot of these social media tools as well, they're not sure which ones when they come up are going to last or are going to be stronger. I know that right now a lot of them are using Twitter and Facebook, and they're still getting accustomed to that. And right now if you go on Twitter for a newspaper, all it will be it'll be a listing of their most recent news, which is important because I think the thought is that they want to be able to shove their news into someone's face. They're excited but also very nervous at the same time.
Well, I think that the fact that they have the same circulation numbers as they did 10 years ago means that people are still buying them the same way and enjoying them the same way. The only thing that's changed is that they're now keep up in a world where newspapers are doing Twitter and all this other stuff, and magazines don't have staff writers for the most part. It's freelancing journalists who don't have an attachment to the magazine they're writing for, so they're not doing the same things that newspapers are, and so it might appear that they're falling behind. I think maybe once things really develop for the iPad and people really get used to that way of absorbing distributed material, then they're going to notice that magazines are lacking. An example of a newspaper that's actually doing Twitter really well and not just posting headlines is the London Free Press. They've got all their journalists on there. They're tweeting what stories they're doing. They're responding to just regular people, and that's, I think, what Twitter is really good for. It's creating a dialogue. So some newspapers are doing that well. Some newspapers aren't. No magazines are.
And to go with what Heather said, the Gazette also does a pretty good job of Twittering as well. Twittering. And to go with what Heather just said, the Gazette also does a very good job of tweeting. And I think that a lot of big newspapers should take a look at what the Gazette are doing and follow suit.
They're really starting now to break their news online. And their print product or their TV product or their radio product are still thought of as the big three, even though they probably aren't. And those are the final products, and that's what I've kind of figured out as doing my research. Those are the final products, and that's where they're going. But they are an accumulation of all the breaking news that might happen over a 9-to-5 cycle. online.
So it is a little different for magazines because it's not about getting to the story first. The story is usually a follow or something that's a trend rather than a breaking news story. So that's another kind of challenge that magazines are facing in this world where it's constant updates, but they don't really have anything else to say. So you've been working on a podcast?
Yeah, working on a podcast for about, I'd say, 2 months now. About 2 months. It's called The Casual Sports Guys. It's with myself and 3 of my peers, Kolby, Sean, and Matt. And we've faced some challenges. Being students, it's hard to put all of our effort into it. But in terms of publication and distribution, I'd say the hardest thing is that we realized you can't slow down and you have to keep up with publication and distribution. As soon as you take your foot off the pedal, people forget about you and they don't want to listen anymore. There's a loyalty that goes along with doing these things with the fans and the followers. And if they miss 1, 2, or 3 episodes, if a week goes by and they haven't heard anything, they stop listening. So really, really, really trying to keep up the tempo it has become a challenge. It's something that we're definitely going to keep up with, but we got some advice saying don't burn out and don't tire yourselves out, because a lot of these things, they start really fast and then they start to slow down and then they're obsolete. So I think that's been a pretty big challenge, and so far the toughest thing, which ties into publication and to distribution. You know, people can see through you if you're not being professional. And if you're just a bunch of guys talking about sports and you haven't done your research, and people pick up on that in a second. And if you lose those viewers or your listeners, then it's going to be very hard to pick yourselves back up again.
I think clearly we're examples of the professional bunch.
We are.
So I think that we're safe. I'm pretty confident about that.
We are probably as professional as you will get. It's a professional world we live in, and me and Kolby, we epitomize professionalism.
Have you guys thought about branching out from just the one format?
If you don't mind, I'll take this one. Yeah, we want to get video of ourselves doing the podcast as fast as we can. Like that's the next step. Website's going up. We're going to get video of the podcast. We're going to get pictures of the podcast. We talk a lot about plays, highlights that you can find on YouTube. That's going to go up on the website. It's going to be completely multimedia. It's not just going to be radio. It's going to be TV. It's going to be radio. We're going to be blogging. It's going to be everything, and that's the way you have to do it to stay above water, really.